How's it going, guys? StayWeird1993 here. Of course, if you know me from YouTube, it's StayWeird1993 Vlogs. And welcome back to our Destiny 2 stream, where we're probably going to be playing some Iron Banner really, really badly. I'm joined by Lord Arbiter tonight. We've got ourselves a Discord. We've upgraded ourselves in the world, so we don't just have to talk to ourselves when we're live streaming, because we have to have...
That's boring.
Sometimes it's nice to talk to somebody that isn't the voices in your head. I mean, what? I don't know about your internal monologue, but mine's been Marek Ishtar from Yu-Gi-Oh! Abridged since about 2005.
I've been monologuing so long I forgot what card you put into graveyard.
Honestly, it's got to the point where, like, if I try and think in a monologue voice, like try and think about anything for an extended period of time, it eventually becomes Marek from the Abridged series in my head, and I'm just like, no, this is the exact opposite of what I requested. Please.
Yeah, a very bad Susan indeed.
Susan. I just for me, it's just one thing I absolutely love from the Abridged series is this: my name is Steve, and what's his name? He is also Steve. And when they've not been like brainwashed by Marek, they've been Steved. It's like, oh no, Bandit Keith's been Steved. It's like they've just. I just love that. Just he's been Steved. I don't know why it tickles me so much, but it's like, no, they weren't brainwashed. They were Steved.
Sounds about right.
My name is Steve, and who's he? He is also Steve.
And who's he?
Steve. We are all Steve. That's literally one of the lines. Like, and let me guess, what are you called, Steve? Yes. Honestly, I think it would make me really uncomfortable if I walked into a building where there was a bunch of people who all sounded and said the exact same thing, and they all called themselves Steve. I would be terrified.
Well, you just says, "Hey, Steve," and he goes.
It's like one time in one place I worked, because my manager was called David. We literally spent the whole day where everyone was called David.
Oh God.
Hello, Dave. Yeah, Dave. What's wrong, Dave? Can I get one of them, Dave? Sure, Dave. It got to the point where someone went, well, "Who's Dave?" And we all just looked at a customer and went, "We are Dave. We are Dave.
We are Dave. We are sentient.
We are one with the Dave. The Dave is with us." I didn't choose the Dave life. The Dave life chose me. Just honestly, that was the best day. That was when I worked at Game. When I worked at Game in Meadowhall, that was brilliant. I loved that job. That was so fun. It's like, the reason I left is just I didn't get enough hours. Like, just because I wasn't working enough hours to support my family. That's the only reason I left. Then I went to go work for an internet provider who I'm not going to name, and it was horrible.
Yeah.
It definitely doesn't rhyme with pie broadband. That's what I'm saying. It definitely doesn't rhyme with pie. And it's definitely not what you see when you look up. I mean, what? Anyway, it's like, but it was it wasn't necessarily the job. It was just, more than anything, it was the customers.
Yeah.
It was the people I had to deal with complaining on a daily basis. Now, I get it. If your internet goes off, it sucks and you're mad, right? But at the same time, don't take it out on the dude who's trying to fix it. And the thing is, I got like several A levels in IT, so I'm not an idiot. Like, I know how to fix this, but then people would be like, "Well, that's not good enough. I want to speak to your manager. Why has it gone off in the first place?" And I'd just be like, one guy, I was just totally honest. I was like, "I'll level with you, buddy. Speaking to my manager is not going to get this to fix any faster. If you want me to fix this quickly, I would recommend not speaking to my manager, speaking to me so I can help you." But, you know, people. It's like, I hate to use the word Karens, but Karens. How's it going, Tickle My Pickle? How's it going, man? And yeah, preach. I know. The places I used to work were not the best. I mean, the place I work now is fine. Like, I mean, I'm working from home. I can't complain. Sometimes you get an asshole, but every job that you work in, you're gonna get assholes. It's a fact of life. If you work in any kind of service industry, you're gonna get an asshole on the phone eventually. But the job itself is fine. Much less pressure.
Mate, I think you're doing Crucible.
Oh, I was, but I've got a repeatable mission. I can get pinnacle gear.
Ah.
So I'm gonna do the pinnacle gear because, of course, I am. Because I'm a filthy, filthy gear whore on this game. It's like, and I need that pinnacle gear. I need my fix. I need to feel like I matter by having a good light level. I need to. It's like having a bad light level is small dick energy, and I'm not about that. Ah, yes, my sleep paralysis demon. But it's like, yeah, the problem is, like, you work in any job in the service industry or any customer facing job, you're gonna eventually have to deal with some not nice people.
Yeah.
And it's not the company's fault. It's the fact is your job is to deal with whatever is thrown at you, and whether it's good or bad. But it's like, I'm not necessarily saying that the customers the customer's always right is wrong. It's not right. I always say the customer is always right except when they're wrong. Which sounds like an oxymoron, I suppose, but it's not. Just follow me on this one, because the customer is always right preaches a sense of entitlement, which means that the people in the service industry are going to have a hard time because the customer can't always be right. It's like if I walk into an establishment, let's say I walk into a pub, right?
Yeah.
I've walked into a pub and I go, I'm not happy with the fact that the beer I got last time tasted flat. I would like one for free, and if not, I would like to speak to your manager. And if they have to do that to every customer who was ever unhappy, then how much money do they lose? And it's like, just because I'm being an asshole doesn't mean that whoever's there with me should have to deal with that. Like, whoever's like dealing with, I think it's not necessarily a bad thing, and I'm not saying it necessarily in terms of this is not every customer, because don't get me wrong, the industry that I work in now, I get plenty of very pleasant people who just need help, understanding stuff. But I've worked in some terrible, terrible customer service environments where not necessarily the company is the problem, but ones where basically your job is to take the complaints, not necessarily to do your job.
Yeah.
And those are the kind of jobs that'll get you depressed real quick. I mean, I used to be a graphic designer by trade, and that was fine. Just the company I worked for weren't particularly nice people, which is why I left. That, and I had to get like 3 buses to get there, and I don't drive, and the company weren't being very nice to me. The pay wasn't great, so I decided that I could do better and be closer to home.
Yeah.
The problem is that doing better meant I had to leave that job and not necessarily get a graphic design job to follow up on it. So I thought, but it's such a cutthroat industry that if you step away from that career path for 5 minutes, a lot of places won't hire you because you've not had consistent experience. But the problem with that is that I have been doing freelance graphic design for a very long time, which means I don't have 100% experience consistently. That's true. However, to say I don't have any experience or any relevant experience just because it's not my full-time job would be incorrect. Because I still do it, I just don't do it in the same magnitude.
Yeah.
It's like, for example, I mean, I've not started it yet because I need to work out a few things, but I've been commissioned to do a piece of digital art for my friend because she's reading. You alright? Sorry, Chloe's just coming upstairs. Esther, is she still wide awake? Sorry? Sorry, I just brought it up and I couldn't find somewhere to stand it. is Esther asleep now? She's here. Bless her. It's but you know, it's frustrating, Arbiter. Like, you know, in terms of like,
Yeah.
I very much enjoy what I do in terms of when I do my graphics work. I love that stuff, but it does feel like when you're not working in the industry that you trained to work in, you're kind of passing your time until something comes up, but it's never going to.
Yeah.
It's just one of those annoying things. It's nothing. It's no one's fault, and I'm happy doing what I'm doing now. It pays the bills. It's not as stressful as the other stuff I've done. It's kind of like, you know, there's a happy medium there. That said, if I did get the opportunity to be a graphic designer again, I can't say for certain that I wouldn't want to take that. Well, when I say be a designer again, well, I am a designer, but if I got a chance to do it full time, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that's the thing. It's like, in fairness, it's like if you train to be a surgeon but have to take a job in a pub, you wouldn't be expected to want to work in the pub if someone said, "Hey, do you want to come be a surgeon?" Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You'd be like, "Oh no, you know this thing I went and studied for," you know. I mean, one thing I've considered is I'm tempted to go to university to do a bachelor's degree in graphics, because I could get into a university course for it because of my work experience, because I worked as a designer full time for 3 years.
Yeah.
So I could get into the bachelor's degree university course. I got told this last year, but I was just too late to apply. When I came round, they were like, "Look, you're late to the application. You need to really be applying in September of the year before, or January."
Yeah, but that means you're not going to stream for like 2 years because you're busy with university.
Oh no, I will stream. In fact, theoretically, I'll have more time to stream. If you hear any maniacal laughter, it's Esther watching videos on her like little kiddie tablet. I don't know what she's watching, but it literally sounded like a demon. So probably where she gets her inspiration for her behaviour. Just kidding, she's a good girl.
She's not watching anime, is she?
No, she's not watching anime. And we all know it'd be Tokyo. This kid will be watching Tokyo Ghoul. Tokyo Ghoul's actually pretty good, to be fair.
I ain't seen it.
I recommend it, man. It's pretty fun. I mean, it's creepy and stuff, but it's supposed to be. It's called Tokyo Ghoul. One thing I'm waiting for, and it's not anime. It's a TV. It's a Netflix series. I'm waiting for end of the month. The next series of the Umbrella Academy is coming out. The Umbrella Academy. It was you know the band My Chemical Romance.
Yeah.
The lead singer wrote a comic years ago called The Umbrella Academy, which is I loved it.
Yeah.
And they made it into a TV series.
Alright.
And I just forgot it existed for ages. And then I got around to watching it, and then I was like, "Oh shit, when's the next series of this?" Because it leaves it on a kind of cliffhanger, well, a full-on cliffhanger. But luckily, it comes out at the end of the month. So I'm just like, "Oh, thank God for that." And I will.
I'm just waiting until 9 for Gundam, the next episode of Gundam Dual Divers Re-Rise.
You see, I keep meaning to actually sit down and properly watch Gundam.
Which ones?
Just all of it, basically.
There's loads.
Well, I watched the original series, like, well, I say it was just called Gundam Wing.
I remember watching Wing all the time on TV before school.
Yeah, on Toonami I used to watch it.
Yeah.
So, well, it was Cartoon Network's anime channel, basically.
Yeah.
Because you had Dragon Ball Z and then Gundam at night. Like, you know, the nighttime programming would be Dragon Ball Z or Dragon Ball GT, depending on what had been released and what hadn't.
Yeah.
And then it'd be Gundam Wing. And then on the Friday night, they had the Omnibus, which is where they had, like, all the episodes of Dragon Ball Z that had aired that week on a Friday night.
Yeah.
Back to back. And then they'd go into Gundam Wing, and then maybe, I think, sometimes Pokemon, but that's where I first discovered Bleach, I think, as well. Like
I've
late
seen
night.
Bleach.
I used to love Bleach. Absolutely loved that program, and it's very generic for an anime to watch, but honestly, it's one of the ones that got me into anime in the first place. Like Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon, Digimon, Bleach, Gundam Wing.
Oh, you can't forget Digimon.
It's like Gundam Wing as well got me
Yeah.
massively into stuff like that. And then
Yeah.
there was this really weird rip-off that was halfway between Pokemon and Digimon called Monster Rancher,
Oh,
and I feel like nobody remembers it other than me. um,
I don't think I've heard of
it's
it.
so goddamn weird, and I don't know how to
Oh,
describe it other than it's like someone
Monster Rancher. Why does that?
Monster Rancher, and it's like somebody had gone take Pokemon and Digimon and went now kiss, and that's what they got.
Let me look at. Let me look at that.
There's
That's
also, of course, there was Naruto, Shaman King, you know. But for me, my favourite animes of all time were Yu-Gi-Oh, specifically Battle City and Waking the Dragons.
Oh no, it's not familiar. I've never heard of it.
It was a really, really obscure thing that was on. It was on Toonami and it was on late, and I got really into it, but I just was like, "Oh, I don't understand. I feel like I'm watching both Pokemon and Digimon at the same time, but it's not quite as good as either. Um,
Yeah.
it's like for me, I just remember my favorite Yu-Gi-Oh era was because I used to watch it on a Saturday morning, Yu-Gi-Oh,
Yeah.
on Sky One, and I used to watch it. And my favorite era was there was obviously the Battle City era, and also when Yu-Gi-Oh was on Nickelodeon for a while as well. Um,
Yeah.
and it's like Yu-Gi-Oh, you'd have Battle City, which was my favorite era. Then it was Waking the Dragons.
Yeah.
But I also liked the, of course, the arc where they went back in time.
Oh yeah.
The final arc of the Yugi and Atem story,
Oh yeah.
which was very. I was kind of sad at the end, but I was also kind of happy because he finally got to solve the mystery of his past, and that was the whole point. That was the end of that arc. Um, but also, I didn't like the idea of Yu-Gi-Oh without Atem.
Yeah.
Although my favourite character was Marek.
Mine's Bakolo.
See, for me, it was always Marek. Specifically, Yami Marek.
Yeah.
It was my favourite characters in Battle City were Yami Marek, Odeon, and Bakura in that series. I thought those were they were actually well written antagonists.
Yeah.
It's like Pegasus was good, but just not fleshed out enough.
Yeah.
Um,
I liked Bakolo's Destiny Ball deck.
the Destiny board deck that was great, yeah. Oh yeah, and with Dark Necrofear as well. And it's
God, Necrofear is such a good card.
it actually is. But I've seen Curse Necrofear, the new one.
Oh, that is really that. I've made a deck on that on media.
You see, I keep thinking about making a Destiny the new Destiny board deck with Curse Necrofear, which is actually pretty competitive.
I know how to make. I know. I have an idea on how to make it.
And it's like you use the Dark Spirit of Silence and the Dark Spirit of something else. And then you use a trap card which allows you to place one of the Destiny board pieces.
I know I made it on the Switch version of the game, but I can't remember I made it on here.
It's not something I've built myself, but obviously it's one of those card decks. As somebody who has used Ouija boards in real life, I quite like the idea of having a deck based around what is essentially a Ouija board.
It is fun.
It is fun, yeah. It's like one thing that I mean.
No, I didn't make one. I'm not to make it.
What sounds weird to me is that as well. I mean, call it's 4Kids censorship all over, but it's like the word final, right? But in Japanese it's just death,
Yeah.
which I thought was kind of better.
Yeah. It's also saying the gimmick puppets.
Oh, the gimmick puppets, yeah,
Like one of them, Death's Troy.
yeah.
its original name was going to meant to be Destroy,
But it's Destroy, yeah.
but but Destroy had to be censored. Destroy for over ER.
Well, yeah, it's like when you look at another good example is you look at the Shadows. Their names were censored
Yeah.
because Shadow Construct, which again the name sounds fine. I like Shadows, so I can talk about this because it annoyed me. Is that the Shadow Construct, which is the boss monster? You know, she was supposed to be called Shadow Nephilim, and it's like Nephilim makes a lot more sense if you know the mythology behind what the Nephilim are. So, for me, I was like, no, she should have been called Shadow Nephilim. And
That's interesting.
sorry.
That's interesting.
Oh, what? Yeah, because it's like Nephilim.
No, what I've just looked
Yeah.
up.
Oh.
No, I've just found out on media.
Oh, what I found out?
I'm just starting to build the Destiny board, new Destiny board deck on here just now,
Yeah.
and it doesn't. And Destiny board doesn't say final. It actually says death.
Good. It's what it should say. And it's like one thing that it used to annoy me that a little bit. Mainly just for kids censorship unnecessarily. Like there's some stuff I understand. Like it's a card game where the target demographic over here was a lot more focused on kids. Over in Japan, of course, it wasn't necessarily kids that it was focused on. Whereas over here, they wanted to start the demographic a bit earlier. Which again, that makes sense, I suppose, for these sort of over-sexualized style characters. That makes sense.
Dark magician girl.
Like, but you know, within reason. So it's like, you know, like things like that. I can understand that completely. You know, making things look a bit more like acceptable for the West, like the way that we see things, and that's okay. Like, you know, they can do that. But it's when things are unnecessarily censored I don't like, i.e. Barrel Dragon was changed from guns to laser cannons, which it looks cool, but really, you're assuming kids over here have never seen a gun before?
And especially Americans, you can literally buy them.
You know, it's not like in America. It's like, you know, for kids of America, we need to censor these guns. Why? Because kids shouldn't be seeing guns. Then why do people go and shoot schools so often?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm not being funny, but it's like people can literally have a licensed carry and take a gun into a school.
Yeah.
I'm not making a school shooter joke. I'm literally saying they can take a gun into school with a licensed carry. So why is censoring a gun? Most American families have a gun in their house.
Yeah.
To protect themselves, which I don't condone gun violence or owning weapons to that degree. Like, to be fair, I wouldn't mind owning probably because I'll say my Norse heritage makes me want to own a Viking battle axe, just for an intruder, because I could just take the axe off the wall and be like, listen, if you come any closer, kind of thing, you know. But the fact that guns are so readily accessible in the States, but 4Kids felt the need to censor guns.
Yeah.
It's like, literally, like, I'm sorry, but most kids have seen a gun before they've seen a laser gun in America. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that in a bad way. I'm not bad-mouthing America. What I am saying is that I just don't think it makes any sense. I just think it's silly. I just think, for me, if I was censoring something for America, censoring guns is probably not going to make much difference. It's like, what do 4Kids hope to achieve? Oh no, guns don't exist, children. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All I'm saying is like, I just don't understand, personally, why you would want to, like, why you would need to censor a gun. Like, cowboys have guns. Like, you know, cowboy toys that children can buy have guns. Yeah, it's like, honestly, it's like the amount of times that, and when I was talking about, like, obviously school children and guns, it's not because I keep making reference to what's happening with school shootings. I just want to make that very clear. because especially because I'm recording for the internet, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that most American children in school have seen a gun.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, if not on a police officer who's come in to speak to kids about guns, or to speak to kids about just police stuff. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's like, I'm just saying that most people, especially underage kids, like in America, they will have probably been exposed to they'll have seen a firearm before. Is what I'm saying. So for me, censoring a gun for an American audience doesn't make much sense. If you see what I mean.
Yeah.
It's like, especially when censoring the gun makes whatever they're doing look silly. Like, for example, in season 1 with the guys who come to arrest Kyber with their invisible guns. Like, where they just menacingly point at him instead. It's like that. Just, it's like how when Pegasus and Bandit Keith had that confrontation. Bandit Keith's supposed to point a gun. And for me, that even as a kid, that would make a lot more sense. It's like not very it's not threatening to point at people. Like for me, like I don't know. I think that's where the censorship was a little crazy. It's like how in Pokemon, in the anime in Pokemon, this isn't the same, but they censored. It just shows how far they're willing to go, and I just think it's really silly. So you know, in the American version of Pokemon,
I think so.
There's a scene where a character drops a rice ball, and it rolls down a hill. It rolls down a hill as part of the thing, and the guy's supposed to sort of run after it. Oh no, my rice ball. It's part of how Ash meets this person, right?
Yeah.
They censored it out for a sandwich.
Okay.
It's like, what? Have you never seen a fucking rice ball before? Like, why was that necessary? Why do you need to censor out the rice ball? Like, why does that need to be changed? I'm sorry, am I missing something? I don't understand.
Apparently not being a sandwich is offensive.
It's like they might as well have turned it into a donut if they're like, yeah. It's like, you know what I mean? It's like,
yeah, but Pokemon already has jelly-filled donuts.
Oh no! I forgot about that. That every time a rice ball is on screen, they refer to it as a jelly donut. It's like,
Yeah, have you seen Lost Cause?
The Lost Cause, is that like a YouTube?
No, Lost Cause. Lost Cause.
No, I don't think I have.
Oh, he basically gets memed about jelly-filled donuts every time.
Oh no. It just bothers me so much. Like, they didn't need to censor that. They could have just said rice ball.
Apparently they couldn't have.
Oh, it's like no, because in the fictional world of Kanto, they couldn't possibly have any food that's not American.
I know, but
it's like the amount of times that I just cringe.
Yeah,
it's like
the amount of times that it makes your face palm.
But in all seriousness, they just didn't need to censor that. That's a totally unnecessary censorship.
I know.
It's like that just makes.
Apparently, they had to do it.
The kids won't know what a rice ball is. Oh wow. Oh, I'm sorry. So, God forbid your kids learn about multiculturalism and how different cultures have food that isn't sandwiches and donuts.
Yeah, so when the day comes they go to Japan and they don't know the first thing about the country.
Hell, if they just go to a sushi restaurant, man. You know, it's like people go, "Oh, I'll have one of them roll things." And like, just learn what they're called. I go to Sakushi with Chloe quite often when we can. The
What's
sushi place,
that?
a sushi restaurant in town.
Alright.
Now, I go to that one rather than Yo Sushi because they have a bigger selection of vegetarian sushi, and I'm a vegetarian. So,
Alright.
so I go there. So you've got, you know, your different kinds of sushi. There's sort of there's nigiri,
Yeah.
there's tamaki. You know, there's plenty of different ones. The point I'm making, you've got sashimi, you got nigiri. There's katsu. There's sashimi. You know, there's plenty. Is what I'm saying. You know,
Yeah.
can't think of any examples off the top of my head, but there's a lot, and they all have a category. Rather than going, oh, could I have some of them avocado rolls? Just go, could I have the avocado nigiri, please? Nigiri, the avocado nigiri.
Yeah.
It's not hard. Or, for example, rather than that, oh, could I have that teriyaki salmon? Could I just have the teriyaki udon salmon, please? It's not hard.
Yeah.
It's like, just read the menu. It's literally right there. It's like when people go to like restaurants and can't pronounce the food they're ordering properly. It really annoys me.
Yeah, it's like going into McDonald's and like saying, I want,
Hello.
like saying, I want fries. They call chips here.
Hello. It's more like just. I want them tato sticks. You fry them. Give me them fried tato sticks. They're called chips. No, can't pronounce that. Or it's like, hello, I would like borgware, please. I would like meat sliced between bread, please. You mean burger? Oh, I can't say that. I don't know how to say that. Burger. It's like, no,
I want a giant number 9.
2 number 9s, number 6, number 3 with extra dip. Oh. Don't get me started on that sound effect. Every time I go to Taco Bell, I want to go up to the counter and go, 2 number 9. But I feel like I'd end up spending £50 and they'd actually somehow produce what I'm asking for. There isn't a day that goes by that I don't think about that sound effect, and I don't know how to make it stop.
You need to do it to see if they actually do.
You see, another thing that bothers me is, like, you know, if you go into like a Chinese restaurant or a Chinese takeaway, right?
I don't eat Chinese, so...
Well, they have this system in Chinese where a lot of the places will have the menu written in Chinese, right?
Yes.
They'll have it written in Chinese, and with a picture of what the meal is.
Yes.
Rather than just asking, and sometimes you get a situation where, especially if you're eating it like foreign cuisine, where the person might not speak the best English that you're speaking to, which is fine because they don't have to, you know, that's not their obligation. But they have a number system in a lot of Chinese restaurants where you would say, "Can I get a number 16 or a number 225 without the prawns or whatever?" Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But people don't use the number system. But when you see them write down your order, they don't write down the full name of sweet and sour tofu. They write number 14 or number 3 or whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's like, if you just tell them, especially if you're ordering over the phone, it's just more... It's in a way you're being nicer to the person you're speaking to. Because if you can just say, "Oh, I'd like a number 14 with a number 14, number 26, a number 5 with rice," you know, it's much easier for them. And people just won't do that. They just kind of go, "Do you do this? Do you do that?" I'm like, but you've had a menu presented to you in English, but everything has a number on it. Because a lot of restaurants that do Chinese food, there's a lot of items on the menu.
Yeah.
So just use the goddamn number. It's like, you know, when people just do things wrong and they don't need to do it wrong, it's much easier to just do it right, which is use the number that's provided to you by the menu. That little number that's next to the dish you want, just tell them you want that. You know, it's like, instead of like sometimes what I've seen people doing, which is going up in a takeaway and like pointing, "I want one of them." It's like, you could have just said, "Could I have a number 26, please?" You know?
Probably just doing an impersonation of it instead of Andy Pipkin from Little Britain.
Well, that one.
Oh.
Yeah, I know. What do you want? Beef. It's like, but then again, this is it's like I heard that there's a comedian who made a really great point about like sort of cultural ignorance.
Oh yeah.
And it's a really good one actually. It's talking about how a lot of people in this country will complain about like how things aren't like other cultures and groups of people aren't integrating with English society.
Yeah.
And that they have their own rules and all this sort of stuff. It's like, well, why can't they just do things our way? It's like, these are the same people who then go on a holiday to Mallorca and spend 15 minutes screaming at a picture of egg and chips at a Spanish server. Like, it's like, come on, man.
Yeah.
It's like, it's like people aren't obligated to do what you say just because they like. It's like, especially when the English are notorious for not integrating when they go abroad.
Yeah.
And I just think it's ridiculous, like, the way that kind of the attitude towards that is over here.
Yeah.
It's like maybe I'm biased because I learned 2 languages and I'm fluent in Spanish. Like I might as well, it might as well be my first language. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it just makes me feel like, well, people often complain about things like that. Like, oh well, why can't they just do it this way and that way? It's like, well, why is it that we won't do it their way when we go over there then? You know what I mean? It's just not fair. And I say it's just the way that the reason it made me laugh so much is just when the comedian Frankie Boyle is called. When he turned around and said, "These are the same people who complain about this are the same kind of people who go to a restaurant in Spain and scream at a picture of egg and chips at a Spanish server until they understand." So is it that hard to learn the phrase egg and chips in Spanish? It really isn't.
How do you even say that in Spanish?
Huevos y patatas fritas.
Ah.
Literally, not that hard. Huevos y patatas fritas. Literally, huevos and potato fritters, basically, if you want to simplify it. They could even say huevos and patata fritter, and they'd know what they meant. It's like...
Yeah.
And it's like, to be honest, I just think... Sometimes I think that people... It's just one of those things that really annoys me, and I see it so often. Especially because when I... it's like especially like when I do go abroad, and I go to Spain.
Oh yeah.
I do make an effort to always use their language because I learned that language and I know their language. Why wouldn't I? And even if people I'm with don't know their language, which I can't expect everyone to know Spanish, that's not what I'm saying. But when I hear a server come up to me and use English, I think, why do they feel obligated to speak English when it's their country? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I just think, I don't know, I kind of just feel bad. I think it's just that kind of being English and feeling guilty because, to be honest, in other countries, the English people suck. like, I'm not being funny, but English tourists are assholes. Like, and I'm not being nasty. I'm not saying all English tourists are assholes. But we've got a reputation, especially in Europe, of just being belligerent, ignorant, and drunk. Most of the time. And I think that's a real shame. Because it's like, we've made a rod for our own back where, like, when you ask any... It's like, when I go abroad to Spain, the amount of times where you hear people like... Honestly, I've read some great reviews on travel websites. They're hilarious. Now, one of them was a review of a place in Spain, right? And do you know what the complaint was?
What?
Not enough there was too many Spanish here, not enough English folk.
There's probably a very good reason for that.
It's probably because you went to Spain, Karen. It's like,
Karen.
It's like, I'm not being funny, but there's also more. It's like, it's like too many foreigners were here. It's like, you're a foreigner. You're the one who went to their country. You're the one who's a foreigner. You literally went to another country and complained that people from that country were there. It's like what? It's like what? What are you
I
talking?
just, I just I just posted the deck build
Oh yeah.
for that Destiny board that I just made
Ah,
on
with the
YouTube.
cursed necrophere and stuff.
Yeah, I've just put open deck builds now.
Sweet. I'll check that out in a bit. Just about to jump into another game of Gambit because I can get pinnacle gear from Gambit. So I quite like Gambit because it's PvP without the PvP. As in, you just work together to kill like Fallen or Taken or whatever.
Yeah.
And then occasionally a player jumps through and you have to deal with like one person. So I
Yeah.
can live with that.
So yeah, this is the build I just put up is the best build I know to come up with.
I was just saying, you know what would make a hilarious side deck card in current format where everyone's running Crystron Hack-Fibrax?
Go on.
Prohibition.
Prohibition.
Basically, you declare a card name and it can't be used for the rest of the duel as long as that card is faced upon the field.
Huh.
So you could just go turn 1 Prohibition, Crystron Hack-Fibrax. It just stops them making it turn 1.
I know which card you're on about. People have sided against me.
It's quite good though. You could side it against anything that plays Needle Fiber, anything that plays Boral Sword. You could even, because it can't be used, you could even declare Ash Blossom as well.
Yeah, but declaring Ash Blossom would be pointless.
It depends because after that they can't use that card.
Yeah, but Ash Blossom's once per turn, so you bait it out.
It's true, but that would just prevent them from doing it. But what's quite Esther's crying.
Yeah, I can hear that.
What's quite good about Ash Blossom is that you've got this. Sorry about this. What you've got as an option with what you've got with Prohibition is if you side it game 2,
Yeah.
then if your opponent has an option, then you can like easily you can easily just stall your opponent. It's not a permanent fix, but it's good to annoy them and you can stall them until they can get rid of that card.
Yeah.
So especially if you're running a deck that either combos off really quick or doesn't, because either end of the spectrum it would work really well. So if you needed to buy some time because say you'd bricked but you got Prohibition, so i.e. Dark Lords, it'd be a good side deck choice for someone who plays Dark Lords, because you could effectively just stall out your opponent's Needle Fiber plays so that while you're waiting to get your bigger monsters on the field, you might be able to buy yourself a turn or two.
I know another interesting way to stop Ash Blossom, so if I remember this correctly.
What was that way?
So you know when you drop Ash Blossom into graveyard for the effects, trigger the effects?
Yeah. I suppose you could. See, a lot of people main deck Called by the Grave at 3. Oh, can you still hear me? Oh, my camera's froze. Hang on.